You got our voices
When I was
not
born, the
sounding
doctors
crazy?
dropped me, and I kept rolling.
Explains a lot. Welcome to the Road Students Podcast. We're excited you guys are joining us this week. Yeah, it's
Start
definitely
after I
be
say
in,
that.
Yes, it will definitely be in there. Glad you guys are here. We are with Briar again,
Yes.
and we are going to talk about purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you're taking a drink.
Yes, talking about purpose.
What kind of color coordinate here?
We are. I see you got my email.
No, definitely not. I was for sure up with both my boys.
This is the default youth pastor look.
Yeah, default.
The
youth pastor
khakis with the
look,
black. Yeah.
Well, I put the red sweatshirt on, the Learn, Live, Lead sweatshirt on this morning, and then I was like, I wore that last week on this.
I had my
this
road
exact chair. So
I had the gray road one. That's like my Thursday sweater or something because I want to wear it every
Something
time.
about it. You always want to wear it.
Well, if you guys are hearing any kind of banging around or anything like that, we've got some changes happening in our student ministry in the area because we're trying to get some things prepared for Easter.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd love to have you guys join us for Easter. Nice little plug for Easter. But Briar, talking about purpose, man. What's going on?
So we had three main points when it came to gotta start the timer. We had three main points, and the first one was you have purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was you have a job.
Okay.
And third one was you have a call. And so a lot of people in our world, you hear those three words and you're like, those three are the same exact thing kind of thing. But the way I like to put it is God gives you a call to do your job, and that is why you have purpose. And so they all kind of play into each other, but they are all three separate things as far as leading out and what God calls us to do.
Okay.
And so as far as a call, like what we were talking about right before this, is we all have a call to minister to people, right? That is something God gifts everybody to do in different ways. For some people, it might be a mission field, right? For some people, it might be pastoral. It might be just relational, sitting around, coffee table, talking to somebody kind of thing. But for all of us, we all have a call to minister. And then for a job, I talk about how you look at Jesus looking at the disciples before he kind of tells them to leave their profession, right? We kind of talked about the difference between a profession and a job last night, which our world says they are the same thing. But for me, your job is what God gives us to do on this earth, and you do it your entire life, no matter what your profession is. So right now, I'm up here working at the church and everything, but in 10, 20 years, let's say, I don't know, I'm working at McDonald's or something, my job is still the same, right? I know. I mean, like, not dogging on anybody that works at McDonald's. I kind of like some McGriddles every once in a while. Get a discount. That's nice. Okay. But
That's just the transition from student.
I know, right? That was a little bit of a hard transition. But yeah, so like really your job stays the same throughout your life. And so looking at the middle schoolers, I basically just explained to them how you have a job right now to follow Jesus, to tell people about what it means to follow Jesus, and to just teach people about them. But that is your job right now as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old. And it's the same job you're going to have whenever you're 70-something years old and you retire, right? Your job does not change all throughout life. And then we move on then we go to the first point, kind of working backwards right here. But when you go to the first point, if you have purpose, I use Genesis 1, verse 31, how I read more scripture than that, but the main verse was verse 31, how God looks at everything he saw and said it was very good. And I had a little bit of a struggle with this. I had to talk to you and Zach about like, why does God say very good? Because I have always gotten so frustrated with that. I'm like, why didn't he say like awesome or like great? Like, why did he just have to say very good? And first time in a sermon that I was like, you know what? I'm going to say the Hebrew word to all of you. And then, of course, there were some middle schoolers that they were just like, what did he even say? But the Hebrew word, like translated all the way back, was meod tob. Very unique word, in my opinion. But meod tob translates to exceedingly agreeable to God. And I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, if I hear something is exceedingly agreeable to God, that is something that is perfect. Because otherwise, if it's not perfect, like I don't think God's going to invent something that isn't perfect at that point. Because if it's exceedingly agreeable to him, man, that's loud. Sorry if you guys hear that. We're getting ready for Easter. But if it's exceedingly agreeable to God and it's perfect, man, that's just... I'm hearing that. If it's exceedingly agreeable to God, that is something that is perfect. And so my main thing that I went from was, why would God make something perfect? Why would he look at something that he said, this is perfect, and then not give it purpose? Because he made all of us with intention, and he made all of us with a purpose to follow him, to do our job, to use our calling, to fulfill our job. And so, yeah, just kind of going through and really trying to make sure and explain why we have purpose in our life. So
yeah, and our purpose is this, to be image bearers of God, right? And so we're to reflect who he is, and of course, when Adam and Eve, brought sin into the world through the fruit, it changed our relationship with God, right? It kind of separated us because God cannot be in the presence of sin. And so, but this whole time, God is still chasing after his people who he've created in his image. And he doesn't, and that us being his image bearers never really changed. We just made it a whole lot more complicated.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And even like one thing I didn't say to all the students last night, but we discussed whenever I was in the small group with 6th grade boys, is really, if you're trying to find your purpose, you're trying to find your calling, that's not something that's just going to like fall in your lap doing whatever you want, right? Like that is something that you find by pursuing Jesus and seeking a relationship with him. I remember whenever I had, hit the mic into my face. I remember whenever I had my call to ministry, that wasn't something that just fell into my lap. That was something that after I spent multiple months just finally deciding, you know what, like I felt like I was even though in my mind I was at rock bottom, looking at the rest of my life, I was not rock bottom. But for me, as a sophomore in high school, got my heart broken from a girl and all this stuff, I was like, oh man, I am at rock bottom. So at this point, I might as well just seek God and see what he has for me. Well, from doing that, it was about a 7 to 8 month span of me just doing everything I possibly could to further my relationship with Jesus. And I remember at the end of that, it was at Falls Creek. That's whenever I've truly felt God calling me and showing me the calling for my life. But if I was not pursuing Jesus and not pursuing a relationship with him, then I argue God would not show that to me. He can, right? But for me in my life, I felt like I was getting so distant from my faith that was harming my relationship. And so whenever I started being intentional with my relationship with God, that's whenever he revealed some purpose in my life.
Yeah. And I think, we have this purpose that God has given us, and I think it reflects on how he created us. So he's given us passion. Like, even if you're not a follower of Jesus, you have passions in your life. You have things that you're interested in, things that you are gifted in, and God wants us to use those giftings for him. Yeah. But like you said, it's not until we find our identity in Jesus that we are given our purpose, which our purpose is to go into the world and share the gospel, right? It is to live a life that reflects how Jesus lived his, right? To love God and love others, right?
Well, I loved how, like, I used, like I said, Jesus looking at the disciples and calling them out of their profession, right, to do their job. Matthew chapter 4. I just love how he looks at them and he says, if you follow me, I will make you fishers of men. And I just found that interesting that he looks at them while they're doing their profession, right? They're being fishermen. And I love how just Jesus used kind of like a play on words of saying, hey, I want to make you fishers of men, not just fishermen.
Yeah, he's using what they are skilled at, right? And that's, I think that's another thing that we can trust is that, God's not going to, God can do what God can do whatever he wants to do. But I imagine that God is wanting to use how we are gifted. And use whatever profession we have to reach the lost. Yeah.
Well, and it also plays into, I remember a couple years back whenever I kept on accidentally saying equipped instead of equipped, but talking about how God's not going to ask you to do something that he hasn't equipped you to do. And so really just trying to lean on the fact that God knows more than we know, right? Like he's just going back to it. He's not going to call you to do something unless he know you can do it. And so just trying to lean on him and seek out what gifts he has given you, take the spiritual gift tests, do all those things, figure out what God has gifted you to do to in turn be able to further his glory, basically. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, good job. And we'll look forward to next week. What we got next week?
Next week, we're talking about life change and how with purpose, there should be some life change. And so when you find that purpose, you shouldn't be living the same life you lived before that. You should have some life change in that. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Excited for it.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yep.